Welcome to Mediumship Sparks, where we connect more deeply with spirit and source and follow the sparks of insight and inspiration that bring us greater awareness, healing, and just more flow into our lives. I'm Noelle Dean, intuitive medium, licensed therapist, and your host. A quick note before we begin: this podcast is for educational purposes only and provides general information. It is not medical or psychological advice and is not a substitute for care from a licensed health professional. I'm so grateful we get to step into this. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I am really excited, genuinely, to talk about this subject today. I was sitting with how I think it's normal for people to define mediumship a very particular kind of narrow way. And it occurred to me that part of what I am hoping that this podcast does for you is that it genuinely sparks you to see different uses for your mediumship. We all come across different awarenesses of how we, in particular, can use what we're able to do. And I love hearing people's specific niches, like, say, energy modalities that they use for healing. It's just really interesting what resonates with different people. A lot of different ideas come to me of different types of readings that would be interesting or fun to do that I maybe haven't heard of other people doing, or maybe I have and I've just never tried anything quite like that. As I was preparing for today, it occurred to me to ask ChatGPT to help me, not to tell me your horoscope or how to do mediumship, but really just to help organize information. I'm going to be doing some reading. If you're watching the video, you'll see that. It may sound like that. But believe me, this information all really resonates with me, and I'm really hoping it resonates with you too, and maybe provides a little inspiration. My disclaimer is the information presented on the podcast is educational in nature and is provided only as general information and is not medical or psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for seeking licensed healthcare services. Sorry, I do have to say that every time. I'm not anticipating a trigger warning or an empath alert, just in case, just like with everything that you ever hear on this podcast, this is a perspective. And I'm not saying it's a right perspective, a great perspective. It's just my perspective. And I feel like that's what I'm here to share. And also all of the information that gets downloaded to me to share. So just try it on. And if it supports you, awesome. And if it doesn't, I hope you still feel like it was worth your time to listen. I want to start with intuition versus mediumship. Often I think to say to people when I talk about this, that mediumship is like intuition turned all the way up, like the volume turned all the way up. The definition I got was that, and I love this because this distinguishes it, I think, even clearer, is that your intuition is your internal guidance system. It's a direct inner knowing that arises from within your consciousness, your nervous system, your higher self. It's how you sense truth, alignment, resonance, or direction without needing external evidence. The word coming to me about that is faith. Faith within yourself that you are, in some ways, your own divining rod, which I love. And that is certainly something I had to really work to cultivate that within myself, to have any sense of clearness and also trust for myself that I could pick up on information without it being like a reaction to something. That was hard. I find it way easier now, but I've really had to practice that over the years. And as I mentioned last week in the episode, is that I've been using this sort of intuitive check-in process for going on 3 decades. It has broadened its uses in my life, but I'm very clear that's distinct than, let's say, mediumship. And I know you already probably know that very well, but the mediumship part is the more juicy side. The definition I got is it is a relational form of intuitive communication. The information is not only coming from within you, but it's specifically tuned into another consciousness or energy or being, physical, non-physical. It involves receiving, interpreting, or translating information from or with another source beyond your own mind. Mediumship uses intuition as its operating system. You can be intuitive without being a medium, but you can't be a medium without accessing intuition. It comes through all of our senses. And as I continue to grow and develop myself as a medium, I notice more and more subtle, even more subtle, and then yet even more subtle information in how it comes through. It's fascinating, and I appreciate that it always changes because it always captivates my interest in that way. Boiling it down, intuition is an inner knowing, whereas mediumship is communication. Why I felt strongly about bringing up how to almost redefine communication in general. I teach mediumship, and if I'm talking to somebody about their interest in a class about mediumship, often what comes back to me is I don't really have any dead relatives I want to talk to. And then I'm like, oh, I forget people think just of that part. And it's just so much more than that. Part of this redefinition is that it's not only, quote, talking to dead people, it is relational and it's interdimensional communication. Mediumship is used as this bridge. The communication can be felt, it can be known, it can be heard, it can be seen, it can be sensed, and it can be downloaded. My actual enthusiasm is about all the different ways that you can use this communication skill to enhance your lives and the lives of those around you. This is how I normally boil it down, is that energy is all around us, and energy has consciousness, and we can interact with the consciousness. I look to apply mediumship in pretty much every area that I can. I have quite a long list that I'm going to share, and then when I have examples, I'm going to share them too. We'll start with plants. Probably the first idea about this conversation that came to me was I was checking in with my intuition if it was right for me to have a plant in my office. I had one, I took it out. All of our plants are living outside right now that were in the house, and I was just checking in, should I bring a plant back into my office? And using my check-in, I got a yes. And then using mediumship, I actually directed my attention to there were, 4 or 5 plants on our patio. I directed my attention to each one to ask who wanted to live in this office with me. And this was my volunteer. I don't remember what this plant is called, but if you can't see, it's like a purple and green plant that can get a little bit leggy, like a pothos. She's really pretty. And hopefully she'll be happy here. Some people have a sixth sense about plants. There's trees, and a lot of us have heard of trees having a willingness to help ground our energy. There's some eucalyptus trees on my walking route. I needed some support, and I remember asking, like, hey, can you help me ground? And I was clear where I didn't get a yes, and then where I did get a yes, which was very generous. I could feel the energy moving through me, from me, with this tree. Also rocks, I've done that. There's a park near our house. The first podcast episode I was ever going to do, I was a nervous wreck. And wow, I don't remember being that nervous about anything. And anyway, I just got a visual of this one particular rock, and I went over to it and I sat on it and I asked it if it could please help absorb this energy, and I got a yes. So I sat there, and I did feel a lot better after I sat on the rock, and I have returned to her a couple of times. I shouldn't say her. I didn't sense a gender. Sometimes you do, of this kind of energy. It was really helpful. Mountains or geographic spirits. I was talking to somebody who was right near a mountain, and I remember getting information about the mountain and that this person had belonged to the land in a previous life. It was a beautiful message. Bodies of water. I have tried to interact at times with the ocean. I bet there are people who get really into that, and I can see why. Weather systems. I don't know if I heard anything back from. And part of what I'm talking about is looking to connect and potentially give and or more likely receive information from the energy of these beings. I think it was the last big hurricane that was coming through Florida several months ago. I don't remember which one, but it sounded really threatening and scary. And I have people in Florida that I love, and I always feel concerned when big hurricanes are coming. But this one, it felt like heightened. I sent a lot of energy and love to that hurricane that was coming and asking it to be gentle, picturing it not hitting the ground. I don't think I'd ever done that before. I'm sure probably thousands of people did that kind of thing. Certainly probably the people in Florida. And it wasn't nearly as destructive for some as it could have been. Animals, pets, wild animals, insects. I have unsuccessfully tried to communicate with the gophers that keep coming to our property to please leave us alone. I don't think they're listening, but I have worked to communicate more with my cat, other people's pets. I try to talk to dogs when I'm out walking. They're not very chatty. Microorganisms like gut biome. I do often talk to my cells. I'm trying to remember to do that more. Talking to the cells in my body. Other things that came up was Earth's energetic grid, like ley lines, Gaia slash planetary oversoul. Now more like non-physical spiritual beings, higher self or your higher soul, however you look at that. Future or past versions of yourself, something I've been dabbling in a little bit lately. Did a workshop recently where they talked about, I'm thinking future and past selves, but they talked about non-linear time. And so it's all occurring at the same time. In the mediumship circles that I do, something came up about every version of ourselves coming in to support us, all of us, all versions, and maybe being a bit more accessible to each other and sharing love with each other. At the end, I could just see a circle of all these different versions of me, and we're all just holding hands and feeling very connected to each other, and it was beautiful. Let's see, spirit guides, like our spirit team, ancestors, so that would be considered like a dead relative, but not somebody that you know. There are some people that are part of our ancestral line that watch over their lineage. This would be somebody who could be a great relative who's been watching over everybody since. As archangels or angels, I have pestered Archangel Michael many times to help remove energies and that kind of thing. I've connected with other archangels at times. I'm feeling very reminded in this moment that a lot of us who were trained within certain religions really probably have it embedded in us that we're not able to connect with, let's say, an archangel or an angel. In my experience, that's just simply not the case. And if you feel a connection for whatever reason to a particular archangel like Ezrael or whoever it is, I would assert that you likely have a connection. And that could be something that would be really cool to explore if you wanted to. Star family slash like galactic consciousness. There are people that feel very much like they are star beings and they feel a real connection with like Palladian culture or Arcturian, and that could be something to connect with. Animal spirits or totems. A lot of us feel like we have animal guides and animal spirits with us, so that could be another beautiful being to connect with. Energetic archetypes, so like courage, compassion, and also just energies in general. Something I was experimenting with for myself is trying to notice what I'm feeling when I'm feeling off. And what is that energy? And really trying to take a step back, let's say the energy of feeling lonely. I was having an experience with this the other day, and my goal would be to take a step back, connect with the energy of loneliness and understand why it's visiting me right now. And I did this a little bit with loneliness. And then what occurred to me in that moment was to think of an energy and call in an energy that would counterbalance that. And the energy of joy came in, and trying to bring in the energy of joy to myself to bring my own energy level up and my vibration up, and to not just sit in loneliness. But I've been meaning to experiment with, because it has come to me to do this, to call in different energies, types of energies, like maybe the energy of courage or the energy of intellect, and just play with it and sit with it. I tried with the energy of sleeping. I've tried that a few times. That didn't really work, but anyway. Spirit babies. So a family friend of ours is pregnant. And when she first shared about being pregnant, all kinds of information came in from her baby when we connected in person for the first time. It was really lovely. One of the big things was I saw salami, and we have to not judge anything. So I'm just writing what I'm picking up on. And when I was telling the mom of the baby about the salami, she says, "Don't tell me that I can't eat salami, Noelle." And I was like, "No, actually, I think your baby wants more." And salami is not something that's probably on the ideal food to eat while you're pregnant list, but she was craving it and she was listening, and the baby was really into the salami. So you never know what's going to come up. Speaking of somebody who can't communicate that's here, other nonverbal people, that could be somebody with autism, dementia, somebody who's in a coma. My friend's never told me her daughter's diagnosis. She is nonverbal. I've spoken with her a few times. My friend's wife, who has stage 5 dementia, and I've done episodes about both of these conversations. Collectives. So I have connected with the Ego Energy Collective and other collectives. I did an episode on the Cancer Collective. Honestly, I don't make any of these things up. I connect and it's what comes to me, and then I just go with it. That's my intention of what to do. And so that's the cool thing about always being surprised, because I wouldn't have expected that, but it was a wonderful surprise. In doing medical intuition, I have had conversations with people's lungs, or I had an experience of connecting with somebody's kidneys. The person was having problems with their kidneys, and I had just, I think, started training in medical intuition. I don't remember the timing of it, but I remember, and I will probably never forget, having a sense of both of this person's kidneys. And I saw one on a swing, like a little sort of emoji looking being. And then the other one was slouched over on a couch playing video games. And the person had 30% kidney functioning happening. So had a whole conversation with the kidneys. It was amazing. I'm trying to also remind myself and really digest the information that my body isn't just this vehicle that carries me around. It's also a collection of its own energies and consciousnesses to connect with. And that could be a cool perspective to try on. And maybe, I want to make a joke, inspire us to eat fewer cookies, because we're thinking about our stomach and its needs. But it's not about living a perfect life or being the perfect spiritual person who ascended to only eat arugula and avocados. Anyway, your own inner child could be somebody that you connect with. Way before I ever encountered, I think this was before I even went to my first development circle. I used to get this eye twitch, pretty significant eye twitch. It was intense. It was to the point where I couldn't ignore it. And I remember a few times tuning in to whatever was happening. I didn't know. I didn't tune into my eye, but I just went inward. And I would get this visual of who I knew to be my inner child. And I would see this 4 or 5-year-old sitting on a tall stool, just waiting to talk to me and always wanting chocolate cake. Always. I didn't always eat the chocolate cake. In fact, I probably rarely did, but it felt like that was her signal to me. And I don't even know how I knew that, thinking about it now, because I was not as in tuned with my intuition, but I knew, I just knew. So I am glad that I trusted myself, because when I would connect, I know the twitching would stop. It was helpful signal. Future collaborators, let's say projects. I did a workshop recently where they talked about connecting with the energy of your future business or your future project. It was part of the exercise that we did. And I plan on doing that about my next book, connecting with the energy of that book, because it will take on an energy of its own. And it would be probably very helpful to connect with it. Locations like your house. There's the land underneath your house, and you could distinguish between the two, or maybe not. And sometimes there are energies that I think assign or plant themselves at your house. When we moved into this house, there were times my husband would be away, and there was this energy that I would experience every time. And it felt like this bullyish masculine energy. I really didn't like it. It made me feel uncomfortable. I had a friend who came over and tuned into it to help me, because she could be more objective. And It seemed like it was a person. I didn't have a sense of it being like an energy connected to the earth. I felt very much like a person. I didn't really enjoy that. And we had a house fire later, and I never felt that energy come back. So it seemed maybe that person belonged to the house. I'm not quite sure. Ideas, inventions, creative projects. And how it's occurring to me now is that maybe you have an idea of a project or maybe a device that wants to be born. And just as I say that, I can feel like a denseness in my chest. That would be like inspiring and very profound. If that speaks to you, that feels like something worth trying, because it feels like there's a lot of emotional, like in a nice way, rich energy that could come along with that. If you try any of these things because you heard, I would love to hear your experience. I hope you have a good experience. And I'm sure you know this, but I'm just reminding you, if you tune into someone or something and it doesn't feel right to you, please get the heck away from there. Look at me cleaning up my language. Seriously, though, don't stick around when something doesn't feel quite right. Feeling unfamiliar is different than feeling like off, like not okay. Take care of yourself. If it doesn't feel right, let it go, move on. Call an Archangel Michael if you need to. He is great at helping to remove energies that are not there for your highest good. You really want to keep the energy around you as clean as possible. And that includes you doing things that take care of yourself and having these kinds of boundaries with energies that you decide are now unwelcomed. You stick with that. You do what's right for you. I was just reminded that one time I was standing in our backyard area, and I swear suddenly it was like somebody was holding my right hand. I think I might have been laying out my crystals because of a full moon or something like that. I don't remember why I was out there, but it was such an interesting experience to just get this sense of this perhaps elemental energy. And that's just from what I understand, an energy being that's really very connected within the earth. Anyway, I got the sense it was male and playful, and it was like sizing me up. Maybe however long I've lived here, he has not had enough time to get a sense of me. And he was doing that then. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to be friends. I think I asked him that, and he was a little bit iffy. And I was like, I respect that. Didn't take it personally. It was unfamiliar, but it felt friendly. None of my like red flags or alarms went off when I connected. And I try to be as neutral as I can be in those sort of moments so I can feel out what feels right. So I went with it. I don't think we've connected again. So I could try if that feels right. But anyway, I left it up to them to initiate, as I often do. Technology is on the list. And I've heard some amazing things come out of the voice of an AI bot. I don't know what to call it, on different podcasts. I haven't done that. I don't feel drawn to do that. A big thing I want to bring up is money consciousness. There's a woman who wrote a book called Love Money, Money Loves You. And she did a workshop that I did several years ago. And I need to do it more, connected with the energy of money. Something else is time, timing, or destiny pathways, which sounds a little bit like a psychic type reading, trying to feel into the energy of, let's say, future events for your own life. I want to say I wouldn't really consider that mediumship, but there are times when I sit with the idea of whatever kind of reading or connection that creates information coming in. I think of all of it as mediumship, because it is communication. Like a psychic reading, that's communication. When I do readings for people, and it's not a specific relative or a specific person on their spirit team, but information that's being communicated. I could say it's intuitive communication, or it's just an intuitive reading, because the kind of information that's coming through, like it's about their business or their life, but somebody's communicating that information to me to give to this person. So you could call that mediumship as well. I think that it would be fair to say that there are probably loads of ways that all of us use intuition and mediumship in our everyday lives, communicating with our animals, communicating with ourselves, being attuned to the people around us. There's a lot of synchronicity that validates for us that we're all connected. And we're all connected. Being more attuned to the energy of things will help you pick up clearer about reaching out to certain friends when maybe they're in a time of need. Now they're reminding me, oh, we've had a couple of house fires. And after the first one, I was in recovery mode. It was very devastating. It was wildfires and it sucked to lose everything suddenly in that kind of way. And I remember living in this temporary situation that we were in. And I was thinking about this woman I went to high school with, and I couldn't get her off of my mind. I hadn't thought about her in 20 years. And then I couldn't stop thinking about her. But I really wasn't in a place to reach out. I just didn't want to talk to people about what was happening. And I was isolating outside of work. Anyway, after that had been going on for, I don't know, a week or two, I decided to look her up because I had no way that I knew of to reach her. And when I looked her up, her dad had just passed. So we can easily be in touch, connected in ways that we wouldn't expect with people that maybe we haven't thought about in 10, 20 years. And all of that is about connection, mediumship, intuition, whatever we call it. It's a beautiful way for us all to be connected, and especially when we use it lovingly and kindly. I hope this might spark some ideas for you, and it has for me. And if you don't think you're doing something that somebody else would call mediumship, maybe it's just what seems like an inner voice, but you know it's not just your mind. It can be really subtle in that way. It may not feel like the big deal that you might think it would if you haven't been aware of doing it yet. One of the things I'm noticing with my cat, and I do pay attention to working on our communication, but I've noticed lately that it seems like she reads my mind a lot because, like last night, she was trying to sleep a bit closer to me than usual. I've been sending her visuals of doing that because I want her to snuggle with me more. And anyway, so she was doing something she doesn't normally do, but I was so restless, I couldn't fall asleep, and I needed her to move for me to be able to turn over. And I didn't do anything. That thought just barely floated through my mind, and she got up and moved. And I'm noticing more and more, like I'll think of her, like I haven't given her dinner yet or her breakfast yet, and it's getting a little bit late. And so I'm just thinking, oh, she's probably going to want her dinner. And I pull the can out, and maybe I'm opening it. I think we open other cans as well. But next thing I know, there she is. There is a being tied in to each other that goes beyond maybe what we would define, but is present. And it's a lovely thing to appreciate when it's happening. And it just closes the gaps, all of us learning to co-create our lives together. This can be a really helpful tool. It's good to have an open mind. I hope this was meaningful to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thinking of you with love. Take care. Thanks for spending this time with me on Mediumship Sparks. If this episode resonated with you, please like it, subscribe, rate, and certainly share it with somebody else who could benefit. If you're interested in any support I might be able to provide as you navigate your spiritual path, please feel free to check out my offerings at connectingwithnoelle.com and reach out at mediumshipsparkspodcast@gmail.com. Take good care of yourself, and I'll look forward to being with you again soon.